Hello, welcome back to my channel. My name is Ruby, this is Ruby Red, and today we are talking about Nonfiction November. Alright, it's the 2nd of November. My TBR video is already done and ready to go, but I just found out that it's Nonfiction November. Nobody told me. I had actually recently been thinking that I do want to start reading more nonfiction books. I used to read a lot more than I have been reading, and I am reading a nonfiction book right now that I'm really enjoying, and it's sort of reminding me that I have often loved works of nonfiction. So I was thinking about, trying to make sure that I'm incorporating more of that into my my reading diet. And then I logged on to youtube.com, and what was there on the front page of suggestions for you or whatever but the announcement video by A Book Olive, a channel I don't subscribe to, or I didn't at the time, I do now, announcing Nonfiction November. And I was like, okay, let's do it. I'm in. I'm linking her announcement video down below, but essentially the goal is just to read more nonfiction books in November than you do in a regular month. And there are 4 word prompts that you can use to pick the books you're gonna read, but that's kind of like the advanced version, or like the regular version, but I'm doing the basic version, which is to just simply read some nonfiction books this month. So I'm gonna do that. I kind of feel like I've been caught up in the rush of things here on BookTube. Like, I've been reading a lot, but I've been reading a lot of books that are like not as intellectually challenging or like stimulating as books that I used to read. And I don't mean that in a like bad way at all. Like, I have loved so many books that I've been reading, and I have been like having a great time reading them. But I just have noticed recently that I do kind of feel like something's missing for me. And I think I kind of got caught up in like the numbers game, even though I'm not a particularly stat-oriented like reader or booktuber, but I do the Goodreads challenge and whatever. It's just like there have been numbers, and like I've been assigning worth to reading more books, when really the worth should only be assigned to reading books that you enjoy reading. What I mean to say is that I would like to, in the future, going forward, be giving myself a little bit more space to read a little bit more intentionally. I just want to be letting myself read, just one book for like 3 weeks and like take my time with it and really like immerse myself in the experience of reading about a topic that I don't know about, and like learning about it and getting involved and invested emotionally and intellectually. And that's just something that I've been lacking. Again, not to say that I haven't liked what I've been up to and that that's the right way to read. Like, I'm not getting at that at all. Okay? That's really important. This video, I guess, is going to document my attempt to be a little bit more intentional with the books that I'm reading, and they are going to be nonfiction books, but this principle applies to fiction also. Like, I've been just like a little bit too fast and loose with my reads lately. So anyway, Nonfiction November. This is going to be not really a vlog, I don't think, maybe more like a wrap-up, but like ongoing, because I wanted to start the video right now. Okay, so the first thing that I'm going to read for Nonfiction November is Into Thin Air, a book that I have been in the process of reading for a while. I am more than halfway through with it, and I feel kind of silly, like I have talked about it a lot on this channel without actually saying anything. So let me just say now what it is, and it is the story of Jon Krakauer, who is a outdoor like nature or adventure writer, I guess. And he was hired by Outdoor Magazine in the 90s to write a piece for their magazine about climbing Mount Everest with, a guide, etc. An expedition. And he did, and then he wrote the piece, and then pretty much right after that, he also wrote this book, because there was just kind of too much to say about the whole thing. So in this book, he is not only writing about the history of summiting mountains and like the acclaim and the other mountains that people climb, and like the background of some of the other people who were like on the mountain at the same time that he's there, like he's painting a whole picture of like the whole climbing Everest thing. But he's also giving you kind of like day-to-day details, the nitty-gritty of like what it's like there on the mountain. And it is not glamorous, it's horrible, it's painful, everyone's miserable, so many people are sick, people die on the mountain kind of a lot because it's extremely dangerous. And so for that reason, it's a fantastic book, because it is so it gives such a wide view of the concept of Everest and the summits and all of that. So yeah, I'm not somebody who's at all interested in climbing to the top of Mount Everest, especially after reading this. Like, who in the world? I just can't imagine. But it has been such a good read so far, and I will let you know how I feel once I have finished it. Now let me talk to you about some other contenders. I think I do have one book from my library on my Kindle, but we'll talk about that if we get to it. There are 3 other books that I own that I would theoretically like to get to. So the first one is Terror for Change. Now this is nonfiction, but it is about psychology and also mysticism and self-help and spirituality, but it's not a fiction book, so it counts. I have been reading this also. I'm about 75 pages into this, and I did talk about it in my Carbon Picks My Reads blog, so that'll be in the cards. And I don't have really anything else to say about that, except that this is a book about using the tarot to kind of think about psychology and behavioral therapy and like cognitive whatever, self-help, healing, growth, self-acceptance, just using the tarot cards as sort of like a window into that space. Really good, really beautiful. Jessica Dorr is a poet, and so this is fantastic to read. And if you are interested at all in tarot cards and psychology, especially your own psychology, highly recommend. Okay, then we're gonna get into 2 other books that are also like extremely on brand for me, but I don't know if that brand has come across in this channel at all, because as I said, I have been playing it fast and loose with the reads. So first we have Nature's Best Hope by Doug Tallamy. This is a book I've been intending to read for over a year. My mom gave this to me when I was living in New Jersey in 2020. So yeah, gotta get to it. She has marked it up quite thoroughly, but this book is by Doug Tallamy, who is a professor of like behavioral environmentalism and ecology, basically like humans and nature and how they interact and impact one another. And this is a book about how like the average American, we'll say, can make an impact on preserving our ecosystems. I think I did a good job of saying that. A new approach to conservation that starts in your yard. And this book is also like a big influence on the business that I run with my mom, which is all about suburban ecology and having like a sustainable yard that's still beautiful, sparks joy, but is providing essential services to your ecosystem. So yeah, I would love to actually read this book. I have been like looking at it a lot with the idea that I would just read like a few chapters at a time, but although I have, flipped through it a few times, I now think that I need to just sit down and read the book. But it's a hardcover, and we know that I hate that. Okay, and then the final book that I'm hoping to be able to read for Nonfiction November, we'll see, is The Arbornaut by Meg Lohman. I bought this book today, actually. I went to the store and I bought 4 books. 3 of them were gifts, though, and this is the 4th, and it's a gift for me. They were all nonfiction books though. But anyway, this is the only one we're talking about right now. I had to buy it because I have to read it. I actually love books that are about trees. So I talked about the Overstory kind of recently in my Bake Off book rec video. I'll link that in the cards. And I also have probably talked about Lab Girl by Hope Jarron. If I haven't, that's like one of my favorite books ever, also about trees. And this book, shockingly, is about trees. So this woman, Meg, wrote this book about the 8th continent, meaning the Overstory, and it's sort of about her discovery and like exploration of, I think, like the canopy. Basically, this woman was studying rainforests, and to do that, she was like, I can't do it from the ground, so she climbed up to the tops of these trees in Australian rainforest and discovered basically another continent. It's a whole different world up there. And I don't know much more about that except that I want to read this because I love trees. A blend of memoir and fieldwork account. That's exactly what I like in my memoirs. I like for them to be a blend of memoir and field account. And this is blurbed on the back by Jane Goodall and E.O. Wilson. And Tommy Hilfiger, oddly enough. Didn't expect that. Is there another Tommy Hilfiger? Like, is that like is he even still alive? Anyway, those are the 4 books that I own that I am hoping to read for Nonfiction November soon, at least, if I don't get to them in that time. And like I said, I do have some other things on my Kindle that I'm thinking about, but we're not going to get into those right now because these are more pressing to me emotionally. So wish me luck, I guess. Okay, it is now November 6th, it's Saturday, and this morning I finished my first book for Nonfiction November, and that is Into Thin Air by Jon Krakauer. Finally done, and wow, I am so impressed with this book, both because of just like the book, but also there's a postscript in the edition that I have where Jon Krakauer sort of addresses some of the criticism that the book has come under since publication, including like some stuff relating to another book about the same attempt to summit Everest as the trip that he's documenting here. Like, it's the same events but from a different perspective from someone else who was on that expedition. And there are extreme differences in the accounts, and basically there seems to have been just a lot of like defamation and nastiness going around, which is, you know, not good, and even worse when it's regarding events that led to several deaths. So I really appreciated that extended bit. I'm glad to see that the author is absolutely not taking anything in this lightly, and he certainly hasn't. This was a fantastic book. It's honestly probably going to haunt me for a long time, and if you haven't read it, I don't think recommend it strongly enough. What a phenomenal book. What a harrowing tale. But I mean, even for somebody who is like not interested in mountaineering or like mountain climbing, whatever, it still was just so intense, and it was so moving. I honestly was almost in tears last night because of just like the horrible turn of events that were just like kind of, it just kept turning and turning and turning, and every turn of events was worse than the last. I can't even imagine having been in this in this situation on that mountain. Unimaginable. Huge tragedy. One of the deadliest seasons, actually I think the deadliest season on Everest in history at that time. I hope that there hasn't been a worse one since then, but this book was published in 6. The thing that really strikes me the most, again, aside from the fact that this is not only a personal account of a man and his journey up the mountain and the other people that he was in contact with and working alongside, climbing alongside, it is also has a lot of history about, you know, other kinds of summits and other kinds of climbing feats, and the history of the mountain itself, etc. It's not glamorized at all. Jon Krakauer is not attempting to paint a good picture of this kind of attempt, of this kind of journey. He's not sugarcoating anything. Like, the reality of life at that high of an altitude is horrendous, and he did not shy away from that, I think. But in a way that was, in my opinion, still tasteful. Like, there were some really gruesome situations, and he didn't try to like dig into them. Like, there was no feeling of like savoring the drama of like the tragedy. Like, it was just not clinical, but just very serious and very respectful. Like, this was a lot of horrible things happened, but a lot of heroic things happened, and I think that he was giving the proper weight to all of these situations, and it really was such a moving book, and fascinating. But I really I really am glad that it did not devolve into some like glamorizing like situation. There's no glamour. There's only pain and suffering. I am impressed with the way that Jon Krakauer was able to write this without letting it get like soaked in despair and like shame and guilt and fear. Like, it is at times all of those emotions are present, but I guess because he has a journalistic career, that never overcame like the whole narrative. It still was very much grounded and like, this is what happened. This is what happened. This is one possibility of what could have happened. We think it went like this, but it also could have gone like that. And the reason that we think that is because of this, that, and the other thing. Like, it was very journalistic. And yeah, I was really moved by this book, and I'm so glad to have read it, and I just highly recommend. I know that many people will hear me say this and be like, this book is so, like, I'm never gonna read that. Like, that's so not something I'm interested in, but I still think you should. I'm sure the audiobook is pretty good also. Like, maybe John himself has read it. No, there's no way. Anyway, yeah, so one book down for Nonfiction November. While we're all here, I just want to take a second to talk about another nonfiction book that I have been reading a little bit of, and I don't know that I'll finish it this month or at all, but it's too soon to tell. The book is called The Library, A Secret History, A Fragile History, and I absolutely don't remember. There are two authors. I feel like one of them is Andrew, one of them is Arthur or something, but I can't remember, but it's on the screen, so you can see it. And this is a book, I got the ARC from NetGalley, an e-ARC, and it is about the history of libraries, and it's sort of, at least in the beginning, it's starting with like the origins of libraries, the first libraries, what happened to them, how book collections kind of shifted with shifts in technology, and presumably it's going to go up to the challenges that libraries are facing in the modern day when technology is rapidly changing, and the kinds of texts that readers need and the kinds of services, and like public libraries, like what is their purpose. I think that's what it's going to be about, but I'm not certain. And I have to say that the beginning of it has been pretty dry so far. So I'm not thrilled with the writing style, but I don't hate it. I'm just not like super engaged yet, but I don't think I've gotten very far into it. So I'm definitely going to keep reading that in the coming weeks, but it feels like something that might take me a really long time to get through, because I think the book is like 530 pages, which is a lot. But yeah, that's on the menu, okay? I just wanted to keep you up to date on that. And that's all I have to say for now. please read Into Thin Air. I might read this library book. I'm still working on Terror for Change, and who knows what else, but you'll know when I know. All right, it is November 13th, so we are nearing halfway through the month, and I have read another nonfiction book, which I didn't totally plan on reading, but that was Eat, Pray, Love by Elizabeth Gilbert, and I talk at length about my feelings and thoughts of reading that book in my sewing vlog. So I will link that up above and down below, and you can check that out. But basically it's Elizabeth's story of going through kind of a messy divorce and feeling really unsure of herself and where she's at and what she wants, and basically she goes on a journey of self-discovery. She visits 3 different countries for like a long time. Like I think she spends a few months in each country, and she learns a lot, and I also learned a lot reading it. I feel grateful for having read it, and I also have definitely felt and seen a change in my own self-care and like spirituality practices, we'll just say. So definitely have been influenced by that book in a really positive way, and I'm glad I read it. And it was nonfiction. It was a memoir. I don't usually go for memoirs. But the other thing is that I am, well, not that far into Nature's Best Hope by Doug Tommy. I don't have the dust jacket right now. I just want to say a little bit more about what it's actually about, because I don't think that I really did before, because I wasn't too sure, it turns out. But basically this book is written by a environmental biologist, ecologist with a big interest in sustainability and, you know, preserving the natural world for the sake of all humans who want to continue to live on this world. So the book basically has been making the argument, at least in the beginning, that land ownership, anyone who, you know, owns land, it comes with a responsibility to also be a land steward and to not only take care of that land, but also to restore it and to help it be a functioning piece of the earth, because we have very limited space here on earth. We've just got the space that we've got, and we've already paved over and, you know, cut down so much valuable wilderness, and without the services that those kinds of ecosystems provide, where they are creating oxygen, they're fixing carbon, they are filtering rainwater, they are preventing erosion, and they are home to so many species of plants and animals and insects that all work together to make this world habitable, and without them it will not be habitable. So this book is sort of a how-to and also why for homeowners to become stewards of their own land and sort of take some responsibility for what their little piece of the earth is doing for their neighbors, whether that's positive or negative. Basically, when it comes to conservation, neutral is no longer good enough. You need to be having a positive impact with the space that you lay claim to, and this book is an attempt to show you how to do just that. But yeah, I'm really glad that I'm finally getting to that, and it's helping me to have more words that I can use to understand and then explain various climate change problems that are directly related to our treatment of our ecosystem. I will see you the next time I've got something to say. I have a couple of audiobook updates to make regarding this nonfiction November situation. I am still reading the 2 books that I last talked about, The Library, History of the Library, whatever that book is called, and Nature's Best Hope. But I have also listened to Breath by James Nestor. Now, I was eyeballing another book by this author called Deep, which is about like free diving, deep sea stuff, which is fascinating and horrifying to me. But then I found out that he has this other book called Breath, and it's about the lost science and art of breathing. I don't remember the exact subtitle, whatever, but I have been listening to that, and it is fascinating. He sort of gets into, at least at the beginning, into how we breathe and how that affects other parts of our biology, physiology, and also other parts of the body, how it can influence nervous system, hormones, etc. It's just blowing my mind every other minute. So I have to like listen to it in very short bursts so that I can listen to something and then think about it for a while and then listen to something else and then think about that. It is fascinating and it is also horrifying. So if you know for a fact that you maybe mouth breathe at any point during the day or especially at night, like tread lightly because this might ruin your life. But also probably read this book because you need to stop that. You need to stop that right now. It's wild. It's wild, and it's also coming at a time for me when I am reading a lot about pranayama, which is the part of the element of yoga that is the breath. So I'm just thinking a lot about breathing, and it is affecting me because I am extremely conscious of my breath at all times right now, which is, you know, sometimes feels bad, but other times feels good. And yeah, it's extremely interesting, and I absolutely love listening to nonfiction books. It is just like a longer podcast, really. I mean, because that's the kind of podcast that I used to listen to, science-y ones. So this is something I kind of am being reminded that I love, and to encourage myself to get back into listening to nonfiction books instead of just listening to like thrillers or something. It is a little bit tricky because I have to pay a bit more attention to the nonfiction books, so I have to pause it a little bit more often, but I think that the payoff is there. I would rather have to pause the audiobook more frequently to think about something that I'm actually doing and then go back to the audiobook than whatever. Yeah, loving that, and I can't wait to finish it. I oh my gosh, already I'm like, that book is bananas, and I hope that it maintains this level of interest for me instead of whatever, you know, because like sometimes it starts off strong and then it goes, but hopefully we'll stay strong. Okay, so November is over. It has been over, and I have been trying to collect some of my thoughts and figure out how I actually wanted to end this video. But here we are. I'm just gonna end it. Final thoughts, some conclusions, results, whatever. I'll start with Nature's Best Hope by Doug Tallamy, which I did finish, and I really enjoyed reading that book finally. I'm glad that I got to it, because it was, I mean, interesting, relevant to a lot of things that I'm doing. I got a lot of like good little tidbits and facts that I can use for work stuff, so that's great. I definitely recommend it to anybody who has a yard, basically. That's the target audience for this book, is homeowners who have some outdoor space that they want to use in a way that is going to be more actively beneficial to the environment, over being harmful or even just neutral. So it's definitely more relevant to anybody who lives like on the East Coast, like kind of mid-Atlantic, I guess. But he does have some things to say about other regions of the United States, and he does offer some resources for places that you can get the information that's going to be more specific to your local ecosystem if it's not the one that he is most familiar with, which is like Pennsylvania area. He just offers some really interesting and very specific information about how birds, bugs, and plants make the world go round, basically, and it was pretty readable, and also it's full of really beautiful photos. And I think that if you have a very limited understanding of the importance of native plants and like what are exotic invasive species and why are they harmful, and a lot of that kind of information is in this book, and so it's a good starting point if you're looking to get into, you know, if you're just looking to to learn a bit more about sustainable landscaping and how that relates to your yard, and also how you would experience your yard if there was more life in it. So great book, loved it, and I can't wait to read his newish book about oak trees, I think. Wow. The other two books that I want to just kind of wrap up a little bit are first of all, the library book, A Fragile History, or no, The Library, A Fragile History. In my head I call it the library book, but it's called The Library. I basically decided not to finish it, but I decided that after I had already made my December TBR board, which includes specifically this book, because I was like still feeling optimistic about it at that time, but then like a few days later I realized like I didn't want to keep reading it because I was reading it. Basically I just like could not convince my eyeballs to stay focused on the page. So I think what I'm going to do is actually listen to the audiobook, and I did put a hold on that at my library, so hopefully I'll be getting that in soon, and I think that I'll enjoy listening to that book a lot more than I was enjoying reading it, because yeah, it's just quite dry. I do still want to learn the things that that book is promising to teach me, but I think an audiobook is just going to be a better format for me. And then kind of on the other side of that coin is Breath by James Nestor. Is that his name? I was listening to that audiobook and I was loving it. I got like 60% of the way through it. I was so, like, there was so much information. I was so fascinated by his experience and by the other experiences he was documenting, and the like, it was so interesting. I was loving it. I was feeling like excited. I was like learning. I was like, wow, I want to know more about all these breathing techniques, and I want to know more about evolutionary biology and like all that stuff. But because I was listening to it, I felt like I wasn't, I don't know, I wasn't taking in enough detail, and I realized that that's a book that I really want to like fully understand, and I wanted to just be able to engage a bit more with the information. So I decided to pause that. I returned the audiobook to my library, and I am going to just buy myself a copy, because some books, that's just how it is. I just engage a lot better, especially with nonfiction, when I am reading a physical book that I can write in. I don't put sticky tabs in. I don't have a color coding system. I don't like do anything in my annotating except grab a pen and just like go to town. And that really helps me engage better with what I'm reading, and also remember it better because I'm thinking more about it as I'm reading it, and I can go back and, you know. So I'm gonna be revisiting Breath as well. I'm gonna get my hands on a copy of it. I'm sad to be taking a break from that because I was really enjoying it, but I know that I'm going to enjoy it a lot more if I have my hands on it. So that's kind of it. In conclusion, I love Nonfiction November. I am so glad that something came along to prompt me to engage with more nonfiction reading, because that's something I missed, something I'm happy to be doing again. It's just reminded me to make sure that I'm including more nonfiction in my reading diet. Like, it's something that I like, and it's something that I felt better including. Anyway, yeah, I'm really sad I didn't get to the Arbonauts, which I was so excited to read. I was really gung-ho about it, but then I just had a lot of other things going on reading wise, and yeah, I mean, I was slowing down, okay? I was reading slower because of what I was reading, so I'm not too mad. I'm sure that I will get to it in the new year, and I'm still looking forward to it. And that's all I have today. So thank you so much for watching. I hope some part of this was interesting. I hope that I've inspired somebody to pick up a new nonfiction book, especially if it's Into Thin Air. And I hope that I will see you back here soon for another video. Okay.